Hi there, all you cool cats and kittens. I hope everybody had a really good weekend. This was a short week for us because we're scheduled for Friday to have MBTA Council Day. So um, we're going to take Friday off. We're going to work for 4 days, though, on one story. And actually, we're going to be working for the next 2 weeks on this one story because we're going to create a storyboard with that. I'm going to talk more about the storyboard tomorrow or Wednesday. What I want you guys to do today, I'm going to read the story, and you're going to take the story and you're going to try to find either, if you can print the piece off, then you can write in the margins. If not, just reading the story online and writing down the lines or the pieces that help you to label the story into its parts. Remember, a story has 6 parts. This story is missing a part, so that's part of the project of the storyboard, is to decide what part is missing. So here are the parts of a story. We always have the exposition to start. That tells us who the characters are, where we are, what the setting is, what the time period is. That's our exposition. Then we have an initial incident. Something starts some conflict. You can't just have a bunch of characters who are in a certain place. Something has to happen that makes us say, oh, what's going to happen next, right? Builds a little suspense, gives us some conflict. So that's our initial incident. That's when the antagonist comes in, usually, or the dilemma, the conflict. Then we have the rising action. Remember, the rising action is the bulk of the story. So we've talked about that with whether it was with Cinderella, who has all these difficulties trying to get to the ball, and then once she gets to the ball, has all these difficulties while she's trying to escape, and the prince is trying to find her, and then the prince keeps coming back with the slipper. All of that is rising action, right? While we wait, well, what's going to happen? Right, so Cinderella, same thing with on the sidewalk bleeding, trying to take off the jacket. People keep coming into the alley. He keeps trying to he's trying to escape. He's trying to get out of the jacket. He's trying to live. Right, all those things are happening, and we're trying to figure out. We're kind of in suspense on how it's going to turn out. So that's our rising action. Climax is when we finally find out how all that stuff is going to turn out. That's that turning point. 3 Little Pigs. Wolf on the roof, right? Either he's going to get down and eat that pig, or that pig is finally going to confront the wolf. They're finally going to meet, so somebody's got to win that. Okay, that's our climax. Falling action. Falling action is, it just ties up loose ends. It tells us, okay, what happened next. So a lot of times it's very, very short. So it tells us what happens as a result of that climax, right? So the wolf falls into the pot, the pig boils him and eats him. That is falling action, right? We found out what happened, what's going to happen. How's that going to work out? Same thing in On the Sidewalk Bleeding. Andy he gets the jacket off, he dies. Laura comes along, the police officer come along, they discuss his death. All of that is falling action, right? In Cinderella, the birds, she goes and she gets married, and as she gets married, the birds come and peck out the eyes. That's falling action, right? And then we get resolution. Our resolution just tells us, okay, how are things now? Now, from now on, how are things? It's like the exposition, but now we've got a new situation, right? So we already know the characters, but what are things going to be like? The third little pig lives happily ever after. That's resolution. Ties it all up. Done. The stepsisters in Cinderella live blind for the rest of their days. Resolution. Now we know about them and what it's like for them for the rest of their lives. On the Sidewalk Bleeding, Laura saying it's Andy, and the police officer saying this is it's a royal. It's resolution. Now we know. Okay, how's this all turn out? That's it. Okay. So the long journey, 6 parts. You want to look for climax. You want to look for exposition, initial incident, rising action, climax, falling action, resolution. One's going to be missing. Then we'll make a storyboard. I will talk about that tomorrow or Wednesday. Okay. So here we go, The Long Journey by Sue Mann. Hey, Walter. Are you planning on staying all day? Huh? Oh, yeah, sure. The auditorium is rapidly emptying, and with it comes a thick blanket of silence. Enveloped in my own thoughts, I have missed the most of the assembly. But that isn't important. Now we have 6 minutes to go to our lockers and our first class, but I already have the books I need. Thinking over the past month, I remember numerous times when I wasted hours of valuable time lying in front of the television or just daydreaming. Our English teacher gave the assignment 5 weeks ago. The short story is, in your own way, to symbolize something. Just make sure that someone with a little intelligence, namely me, will be able to recognize what you are trying to show. Have your story with at least 2,000 words completed by April 21st. Today is April 21st. 3 days ago, I began to get worried about the story. I know I shouldn't procrastinate the way I do, but you know how it goes. And the assignment doesn't have to be handed in for 2 or 3 weeks, or even a week. It seems like a long way off. I always excuse myself by saying that I work better under pressure, but for some reason it didn't work that way last night. Last night I still hadn't begun to write the stupid story. I had tried, but success had evaded me. Well, I was sitting there with the radio on because, of course, I work better with noise in the background, trying to make my pen write a story. On my 7 or so previous attempts, I could get about 100 or 200 words, and then my mind would go blank. Then I started thinking that I could use a story from a magazine as a model. I could use a plot for an idea and maybe even use some of the phrases and incidents. For 3 hours, I browsed through my old magazines and read all the short stories in them, along with jokes and cartoons and the eye-catching articles. From the beginning, I could tell that this was going to be more or less a waste of time, because the only magazines I had were Time and Sports Illustrated, which aren't exactly literary magazines. But I just kept reading and losing time. Finally, it dawned on me that my mother's Good Housekeeping magazines are rather well known for their interesting short stories, at least around my house. Maybe I could find one making use of symbolism. The 12th Good Housekeeping that I picked up had the perfect story in it, and it was even written by a man. By this time, I had read 11 magazines, and it was 11:30. I sat for an hour or so trying to figure out how I could change it but still maintain the plot and use the symbolism. When it got to be 1 o'clock, my leaden eyes were becoming too heavy for the weary muscles that hold eyelids up. Of course, I had stayed up very late the previous night because of a history report I handed in yesterday, a day late. Then I got to think. This is not only an old issue, this magazine's written for, and it's usually read by women. Since my English teacher's a man, I could see no earthly reason why he would ever read the story. The fact that he was a bachelor prodded me even more. After about 2 more minutes of deliberation, I recopied the story in my own handwriting, changing only the names of the characters. Sled, by Walter Milburn. All the adventure of the night and snow lay before him. If only he could get out of the house. Well, now I'm sitting in this auditorium. See, how can I possibly turn this in as my own work? The decision is weighing heavily upon my mind. I begin my journey through the endless corridors of the school. Beat Bears. We played them last week. That sign ought to be taken down now. It's only taking up space now. Could I be put in jail? The Miracle Worker. I hope this year the senior class play is a more effective performance than it was last year. How could anyone ever know? Jim got a new pair of shoes. About time. His old ones were falling apart. Who would know? I'll know. I haven't stolen since I was 8, until now. The door needs a good job of lubrication, and the glass isn't exactly immaculate. My parents pay enough taxes. Why can't things be kept in good condition? Here's room 23. The 2 is almost 1/4 of a centimeter taller than the 3. My seat, middle row, second from the back. Please pass in your stories. I don't think I can. Well, Walter, isn't yours complete? Your grade can't take that. What? Oh, I must have been daydreaming. Here it is. Well, I did it. I had to do it. If I failed English this semester, my parents would be more than mad. What's done is done. They'll never know the difference, and my parents will be happy. Now, class, I'd like to read this story to you. I told my aunt, who used to be an English teacher herself, about the assignment I gave, and she said that she had kept a story written by one of her former pupils on file because it was not an excellent example of symbolism. The pupil is now a well-known author, and the story has been published. Sled by Thomas E. Adams. All the adventure of the night and snow lay before him. If only he could get out of the house. Okay, that's the end of the story. So your job is to go through, label it, try and come up with your 5 parts. Right? There's 1 part missing, so 6 parts, but 1 part's missing. Climax, initial incident, rising action, exposition, initial incident, rising action, climax, falling action, resolution. All right. We'll see you tomorrow or Wednesday, and I'll go over the storyboard assignment. Bye, guys.